Welcome to Birch Tree Studios, the home of 1013 Publications. This is 40 Below Zero, an international show about chronic illness hosted by two guys with MS. I'm your co-host Nick, and with me as always is Terry. We're so glad all of our warriors and supporters are here with us, so let's get into it. So I'm doing better than last time we spoke.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's going on, man? Why? What happened?
Nothing. I don't know. Maybe just talking it out like we did, helped work through it a little bit. Maybe got it out there.
Dude, I rarely do that. I rarely talk to someone and show them my true self, remember? And I felt really silly. I was like, oh my God, this guy thinks I'm crazy.
Well, the more you do it, the easier it gets.
Totally.
So
I was going to bring that up as soon as we start this recording. I was going to say, man, I went through a funk, and I'll say it again today, but I went through a funk and it lasted 4 days. I don't know what was wrong with me, man, but I made a counselor appointment.
okay,
I have
cool.
a set coming up, and I took it upon myself. I'm like, I need to talk to someone. And I called, and she's like, what's going on this time? I'm like, you put me on a good path before, but I feel like I'm coming down again. I feel like I'm bitter. I'm biting people's heads off. I already ended relationships again, not like girl relationships, and friend relationships, obviously.
No, I feel
But I've already ended. Yeah, I had to do it for my mental being. Anyway.
No, I hear you. It's the same. Who knows? Maybe because the planets have shifted positions. Maybe it was because the weather's up, the barometric pressure. Who really knows? Maybe it's the fact that we talked and we worked it out. It doesn't matter. The fact is we're both seem to be doing better than we were a week ago.
Agreed. Yeah. Yo, man, this is human. Like, everyone goes through this.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
We don't even talk about it. So.
No, but I think people who listen to our little show here, I think maybe if they're feeling like they're the only person who feels like they're losing their mind, and they hear us talking about how much we're losing our minds, maybe it helps.
Yeah. Yep. Dude, I always tell everyone that whatever you're going through, just speak up. I promise you, one person in this world is relating to you, and you're making that person feel better, and just speak up.
Oh yeah. So I'm glad. I don't know what happened. Did you and I sync up wavelengths now that we're both like, we were doing cruddy and now we're doing good? And now,
dude, I wrote this down. I was like, I can't wait to tell this guy how well I'm doing. But I don't mean like I'm cured and everything.
No, I know.
Mental awareness is real, but
yeah, you're just in a good
totally.
space right now.
Yeah. I can't wait to talk to my counselor, and you know what I mean? Just
sure.
Whatever.
And I just said yesterday, I said to Kit, I think I'm going to make an appointment to talk to somebody, because I feel like, just like you, I feel like I was at that point where it was relevant again. Because I don't believe, just personally, I don't believe you should be on it forever. I think you should go in and out as you need it.
So a therapist, you pay, and you pay for the next 2 years until you don't want to take a therapist anymore. This counselor has a 6 appointment process, 6-step process to try to get you on your way of what you're trying to achieve. And then you can go see them again after 5-6 months after, but it's not supposed to be an ongoing thing for a long time, because they want to get you on the right path.
Yeah, they don't want to keep you there.
Yeah, exactly.
At some point, the therapy itself becomes the hindrance to your success.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't want to. Yeah. Agreed.
But I heard you whisper.
I said it's free. Unless you go see a therapist. I think those are all paid.
Gotcha.
So that's why they do. I believe that's why they're like 6 sessions, and you should be on your way. Let's try to cure you. Not cure you, but let's try to put you in the right direction.
Well, when's that starting?
Next week I have my appointment.
Oh, okay.
Don't make me get my calendar out now.
No.
Yeah, but it's next week. Yeah.
I didn't know if you were going to do it during our break, or if you were going to just start it right away before. the Christmas season comes.
Oh, yeah, next week. What do you mean? Did you say during our show? Yeah, man.
Yeah, no, our
Yeah.
show break. Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay. I think it meant like during our show, like, hey, what's going on? This is Doctor.
Welcome to my therapy session.
That'd be interesting, man. I'll ask her if she's.
Nah,
Well,
I'm
why
sure
not?
that violates a couple of rules.
Does it? I guess.
Uh, I'm sure, but
Yeah.
you can't violate your own HIPAA. I don't even know if you guys even have HIPAA up there.
I don't know what you're saying.
Okay.
Hippo?
So, HIPAA.
We got plenty of hippos here.
There is a piece of legislation that is called the Health Information and Personal something act. It's basically, it says that no one who is involved with your healthcare can share your information about your healthcare with anyone who's not directly involved with your healthcare.
Okay.
So hospital systems, doctors, everybody cannot tell people who are not involved with your care, even if you're seeing them.
We have it, by the way. I just looked it up.
You do?
Well,
Is
I
it called
see.
HIPAA?
I checked HIPAA,
Okay.
HIPAA. There's another one with one A,
Yeah.
privacy patient track in
Right.
Canada. Yeah.
All right. So you got something similar.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, it just means no one can call up your therapist and say, "Hey, can you tell me why Terry's seeing you?" And they'll be like, "Oh yeah, sure."
But even though when I first start talk, even though they know me already, but we go through a questionnaire because it's a fresh 6 weeks or
Right.
6 appointment program.
Yeah.
She asks the same thing. You do know that if you say anything that you're going to harm yourself,
Yeah.
the usual, right?
Yeah.
So
That's because she's a mandatory reporter.
of
That's all.
course, of course, and I respect that, of course.
Yeah. And um, it's in there for not only to protect you, but to protect them. Um, so and in my opinion, that should be that for all those mandatory reporters. They should have to report it
Yeah, of course, of
because it's
course.
been far too many instances of horrible things happening when someone should have said something and didn't. You know what I'm saying?
I,
So
I,
that's what I agree with.
I totally agree with that. I'm fortunate that I've never had someone in my life end their life,
Well,
but
yeah.
I do know people that know people and they
Mm-hmm.
still go through a lot, man.
Sure.
Yeah. So remember last episode I told you I said that joke to someone?
Yes.
We're okay, we're friends, and he understands. We had a talk, and I felt really bad, even though he's like, "Oh, I didn't even care." I'm like, dude, you like totally shame me for saying that to you. He's like,
Mm.
"Yeah, but it's you, it's Terry." I'm like, "Yeah." Anyway, so
Well,
I
good.
feel better
I'm
now.
glad to
Yeah,
hear that you were able to
that's not me, man.
mend fences.
Yeah, we never had an issue, man. But yeah, I'm glad too. I get to sleep.
Sure. I hear you completely. So, Terry, who do we have with us today?
Okay, so I mean, not only do we have an ambassador for MS Canada, a volunteer for different projects that happen within the community. Most importantly, she's a friend of mine who is also affected with the crazy, unpredictable multiple sclerosis. Karen Jacoby. Thanks for taking the time to hang with us. You see, this is what I go through. How you doing today? And don't lie to us.
I'm staying well. As you must know, day to day, that answer changes, but I'm so happy to be here connecting with you.
It's funny because whenever Nick asks me how I'm doing, I'm like, I'm doing okay. I just give that okay answer. But how are you really doing? That's why I say don't lie. You know,
Well, what I'm really experiencing currently is I am keeping well. I'm very happy to report that my disease modifying treatment has been successful, and the life I'm living today compared to my initial diagnosis is a complete 180. So I am very grateful for that. But having said that, I still am managing a lot of symptoms and now no longer enjoy a limitless life.
Mm. What DMT are you on?
I'm currently on Ocrevus.
Yay, me too.
nice. Archivist family. So here's one thing. You were diagnosed in early 2020 and you became extremely involved with MS Canada right away. we'll get back to that in a second. At the fact that you were diagnosed in early 2020, COVID, geez, we'll talk about that in a second. But I saw you noted that fundraising, you've been fundraising for MS for since you were in elementary school. What motivated you to bring awareness I'm all over the place, man.
What Terry was getting at was it's odd for us to see someone who's been involved in the MS community prior to their own diagnosis. So naturally, that begs the question: as an elementary school kid, how do you say MS is the cause I want to get behind?
Well, the authentic answer is I have always been extremely philanthropic. So I've actually been supporting a lot of different organizations my entire life. I come from a family of means, a very generous family. So it's always been instilled in me that everyone has a story and there's ways that we can help. Oddly enough, my initial journey began through my philanthropic pursuits because although now I've recognized that I've endured a lot of different MS symptoms, MS relapses, my first initial attack happened when I was climbing the CN Tower for the World Wildlife Federation. So keep
Whoa.
in mind that's almost 1,700 steps. To put that in perspective, the Empire State Building is 1,500. I did not train for it whatsoever, and I thought I had just pinched a nerve when I woke up the next morning with full leg paralysis from my hip down. So
Wow.
yes, I have always been a supporter of MS Canada. I do know some people who have been affected, and I did start to learn and recognize what that looked like, especially because this is known as Canada's disease. We have over 90,000 people living with MS in this country. So I think it's very important that we start educating each other and understanding what this looks like because unfortunately with my diagnosis, many people didn't recognize what that meant and how that would affect me.
Mm.
So when I got diagnosed, I didn't even know what MS was. That's why I was surprised when I heard that you were fundraising for MS way back before you were diagnosed. That's pretty cool. So you were diagnosed 2020, early
I was.
2020. Was it
Yeah,
before the lockdown? Not lockdown. Before.
yes.
Wow.
January 2020, just weeks before the world was introduced to COVID-19. So you can imagine how isolating and lonely it was. My connections were only virtual. Our MS walks were only virtual. They were never in person. So I'm so happy today that we are now gathering in person to move our mission forward and affect change.
Yeah, that's a reoccurring theme is people will relay to us just how isolating the diagnosis in and of itself is, let alone receiving that and then having to stay where you are. And then, oh my goodness, I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine.
And to be honest, I am now kind of experiencing delayed grieving.
Mm, mm,
I wasn't in a place of denial during my diagnosis, but during that time, the world did lock down. So I kind of felt like we were all connected in a way that my limitations were also other people's limitations, including able bodied people. Unfortunately, a lot of people couldn't work, they had to stay home, we weren't socializing. So I felt comfortable. And then when life started to come back for everyone, I recognized that for them, that was a temporary inconvenience. But my life with MS and my limitations are lifelong. And now I'm starting to recognize that and see what that looks like and how I can validate and find value in my purpose.
I get triggered so much. I know exactly what you're saying because when everyone started doing the delivery thing, I'm like, welcome to my world and stop slowing my system down because I depend on deliveries. I like to go outside, but there's times I have to get delivery. And when COVID started, everyone started doing the delivery thing. And I'm like, hey, welcome to my world. This is now everyone's going back to normal and I'm still on that path. And I get you. I totally understand that.
Especially because I was diagnosed like during like my childbearing years, during the middle of my career, I was enjoying a rewarding career in the luxury retail sector, an
Okay.
active, healthy lifestyle. And then I went to being unemployed and negotiating different levels of emotional and physical burden on a daily basis. So definitely in my particular social circle, I see everybody moving forward with the dreams that I had planned for myself, and it's looking different. So
Yeah, that again, it's something when you are in the throes of being where you think you should be, such as myself. I was on track to have a career that was pretty much laid out in front of me, and then now 10 years in, I see where those folks are now, and I'm like, that would have been me. But that's, what are you going to do? I mean, did did you have a good support network around you? I feel like that would have been really important getting diagnosed during that time frame. So I hope so.
definitely. Well, I
Okay.
have a wonderful partner. He met me at my best. He married me at my worst. We just celebrated our 1 year anniversary. So,
Hey,
again, very
congratulations.
happy. Thank you. But really, and I'm sure you've experienced this as well during diagnosis, you have to learn a lot of truths about yourself. You have to meet yourself again, truths about your friends, your family. I do have come to learn to a certain extent that compassion without action is just observation. So, unfortunately, I have had to renegotiate some of my relationships
I like that.
accordingly.
Cool. Um,
Yeah, and that's tough because during it, like you said, it's a renegotiation, so sometimes it doesn't fall in your favor or even the favor of the friendship or relationship. And that is extremely a good way of saying sometimes your friends suck. Sorry.
No, okay.
I got to meet
That's
your
fair.
partner. I'm glad I got to meet him. Really nice
Yes.
guy, obviously. Um, Archivist, what's your experience with Archivist? How is your body responding to that?
Well, when I was initially diagnosed, and again, like many people, I was misdiagnosed. I initially did go to emergency after my CN Tower climb, after I had put in a few weeks of dragging my leg around and with mobility aids. Again, because I think sometimes we don't want to be perceived as dramatic or complaining. I would
Mm.
often have like district managers come in and tell me I'm so frail, or like, you're just like a little flower, you're always sick or something. Nobody actually recognized that there should maybe be some further investigation. So I did
Wow.
go into emergency, and the attending physician, I actually shared with him. I said, I'm sorry, I kind of went on Google, I kind of fell down the rabbit hole, but I'm starting to see certain symptoms that seem to be consistent with multiple sclerosis. And most people that I spoke to were always like, oh, you look healthy, you look fine, which was also very shocking to me to understand that we have such a high percentage in Canada and our healthcare system isn't even recognizing that this could be a possibility. So, anyways, I told him they actually ordered an emergency lumbar MRI. So, not C spine. I think they were searching to see if I had slipped a disc. So, he received the results. And I still remember his voice when he came back and said, "You do not have MS," which is very irresponsible to make that kind of black and white comment.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I was also kind of like, okay, that's reassuring, but where do I go from here? Like, what does this mean? Like, I don't understand. So that was in April of 2018. And then I started to have more symptoms that became crucial and emergency after having changed careers, thinking that maybe the reason why I was tired and my feet were numb is because I was putting in 14-hour days on concrete floors and poor heels. Of course, I'm tired. Of course, things aren't working the way they should be, right? But so then I changed careers, and by holiday season 2019, I started experiencing like severe incontinence
Mhm,
and optic neuritis.
mhm.
And that's when I finally went to my general practitioner and said, nobody has ever looked at my brain. And she kind of said to me after I expressed to her what some of my symptoms looked like, she was like, "Are you worried?" And I'm like, no, I just want to understand what's happening with my body, and I have the courage to take that on. So, anyways, I get my initial MRI, and I'm sure you've already expressed on your show that many people, when they're first diagnosed, generally the average amount of lesions are somewhere between 8 and 14 on your brain.
That's the statistic. Yeah.
Yeah, statistic. In my initial MRI, they discovered over 50 on my brain. When I
Yeah.
received my baseline, they actually changed that to 70. And in
Wow.
my C spine, I had an innumerable amount, which means
Mm.
there's so many they can't count. So
I
immediately, sorry, go ahead.
no, you're saying I was just gonna say I am in that club. So
Yes.
I hear what you're saying. I'm
Yeah.
over 50 and they stopped telling me.
Yeah. Exactly. So to answer your question about Ocrevus, immediately when my file was sent to a neurologist, he was very concerned about my case. Between me being officially diagnosed and actually getting on Ocrevus, I had accrued an additional like 20 lesions. So I was very progressive. And they're just like, kind of fingers crossed that this was going to work. Um, and the good news is that it has.
Good.
Since the past few years, there has been no new activity, no new lesions. Obviously, I have accrued or endured some damages from some of those attacks, so I
Of
still
course.
live with some poor symptoms that are permanent at this time until we find a cure.
Just like me. So you're still relapse remitting?
Yes,
Do you,
I am.
I believe that too with me. And even though I'm in a chair, I believe it's just damage of the nerves that
Oh yeah.
kept me down. That's all.
Hmm.
So cool. Okay. Ocrevus, I might be going on that as well soon. I'm waiting for my
Okay.
MRI.
Okay.
Great. You're involved in so many fundraisers. First of all, the am I saying it right? Carnation campaign. You used to do the face masks. Do you still do that? Where a
Oh yes.
percentage of are you still doing that?
Uh, well, I'd like to think that we're slowly moving away from the pandemic, but
Of
we'll
course.
find out. But obviously, when I was initially diagnosed, I started researching about how I could get further involved. I think my first year I raised over $20,000, which was something considering that it wasn't in person. It's emails, it's
Yeah.
Mm.
calls, it's online.
That's hustle.
Um, yeah.
You got recognized for that, I hope. $20,000, that's huge.
And then the second year, I
Yeah.
conducted a fundraiser, and this was when we were in complete lockdown. But I said, this is urgent and this is critical for us to raise funds to find a cure for MS. So I am going to be here. I actually invited my local member of parliament. I started making meaningful connections within the community, advocating, raising awareness, and then we raised almost 30,000. So to date, I'm over $50,000, not to I'm humble and I appreciate all the people who made these contributions. I'm not trying to like highlight these efforts, but I just want to let people know that it is possible. And if you're prepared to be vulnerable and share your story, you might be surprised how many people will answer your call.
Exactly right. And I completely understand what you're saying. You're not mentioning the numbers to say, look what I did. You're saying, look at how much help is out there.
Yes.
So I get it. Um,
She's met some influential politicians. Like she's met John Tory, a former mayor of Toronto, Rob, the MP in Don Valley. Like I've read some stuff, and Justin Trudeau, of course, which is really cool. How are those experiences?
Well, uh, speaking to members of parliament and the prime minister, I think it's really important that we feel heard and seen by our federal government. So I was very happy to have those conversations. I'm also very proud that as of this year, we just passed and received royal assent for the Canada Disability Benefit, which we've been working on for years. And now it's officially legislated and now it's in a regulatory phase. So this is like life changing for anybody living with a disability in Canada. Like this is like history made. So I feel really proud that I could be a part of that campaign and that mission. And I'd like to think that my voice and my story wasn't forgotten and it made a difference. It's really important for me to feel like I'm making a meaningful difference. I actually had an opportunity to deliver a keynote speech to parliamentarians just this year in Ottawa. And of course, we are looking to look. I don't want to say raise, have a commitment of $15 million for MS research because we're so close and there's been so many breakthroughs and it's so important to have a better positive health outcome for those living with MS. So those have been probably some of my most memorable moments of sharing my story.
Wow, that is a huge goal, which is amazing. 15 million. Wow. So for the non-Canadian in the group, I'll ask, what is the legislation you were talking about? Because I'm not familiar.
It's okay. It's Bill C-22, and what it looks like is for people who are eligible, once it actually the regulation process is complete, which might be in the next 18 months. It's just literally money going into the pockets of people with disabilities on a
Okay.
monthly basis. It's lifting people with disability out of poverty, because the reality is being disabled is expensive.
Very
I
true.
don't know about you, but I have like heat intolerance, so my air conditioning bills are through the roof in the summer. I have mobility aids. Unfortunately, I do have to live with incontinence wear. So all of these dollars and cents, it's not, oh, I'm just looking to have a trip, or we're talking about cost of living in Toronto, Ontario, where I hail from. We know what that looks like. Unfortunately, it's not very feasible for many people, let alone people living with disabilities. So,
And that's why I moved to London, Ontario.
and how's it working out for you over there?
It's good. It's a really
Good.
slow-paced city. I hope I don't get haters on me now, but
No.
it's a slow-paced city, and I like it. It's more comfortable to be around. I feel like Toronto was rush, 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 rush,
Mhm.
and that wasn't my lifestyle anymore. So, but I love how you said um, it's expensive being sick. Is that what you said?
Yeah,
It's
from being
ex
disabled.
being
And I
disabled. Yeah, you're
actually,
so right.
quote unquote, I said that exactly to a senator when we were looking to get the bill passed just a month before they officially passed it. And like just looking them in the eye. I also was able to share my hope mantra. I have become known as the woman who is addicted to hope. And I share it with everyone I see. And specifically with Prime Minister Trudeau, I shared it and I said, hope that with continued research, a cure will be found. So that's kind of my mantra. It buoys my spirit, and it keeps me going.
Yeah, and it's very important because there's a lot of times where not only we can feel helpless, but also hopeless. So having someone remind us that it only takes hope to get moving in the right direction. You got to start with that. So that's huge. And that's amazing that you actually had the ability to speak to the prime minister like face to face. That's mind blowing to me. Uh,
You know,
Well,
and
I'm happy to represent the community. I hope, I never want to let people down. So I hope I made a difference.
oh, I'm sure you did. Um, in this show, we kind of want to normalize, these symptoms that we live with to the public because they don't understand. I love that you just talk about incontinence. I do too, all the time. So, and I love how you say, being disabled is expensive because, and I'm like, oh yeah, you got to buy different. I got to buy, like, I have 2 ACs in my home. I got to make sure my home's always cold in the summer.
Mhm.
Totally get it. It's not the same. And people are like, oh, it doesn't your AC bill go up there? I have no choice.
Yeah.
I'll be zonked out if I don't have that. So totally understand that. I like that you put it.
Yeah,
mhm.
and to your point about having a healthy support system, I'm very lucky to have such a wonderful mother who, on a weekly basis, and this is also something I share with people, I have limitations now, but everybody in my life has also my same limitations. My husband, my family, we can't experience life in the same way because of what I'm capable of at this point. So my mom literally every single weekend goes to the Shoppers Drug Mart to find like adult diapers on sale for me because she knows that if she can get them on sale, that will save me $100 a month, which will result in like over $1,000 at the end of the year. And that makes such a huge difference. That's what I'm saying. It's not even rent. It's not even groceries. It's just I'm trying to keep myself from like expelling my bladder in public and embarrassing myself, right? So, which unfortunately I have a lot of stories like that too, but I don't know if
It
that's
is.
healthy content on the on the
Nick, are
show.
you okay if I talk to her for a second, please?
This is something that I
Okay.
fortunately don't have to deal with all that often. So
Okay.
please share to the level that you want to inform persons like myself and others. So please.
I was starting up an Instagram account probably like 5 years ago where it was just people peeing themselves
Yeah.
just to normalize it because it's not even with MS. It's people who have, people weak bladders of all sorts, like after pregnancy, elderly, whatever the case is. So I wanted to normalize it. And it's
Yeah.
not that I go around peeing myself, but you just don't know when you're, I don't know how I'm sure everyone is different. I just cannot, I have a spasticity thing going on. So when I need to go, I have like 20 seconds, 2 minutes, you know what I mean? So when I feel the early urges and yeah, and it's embarrassing for me to, in the beginning, it was so hard for me to talk about, especially maybe because I have an ego and I needed to put that shit aside because that was killing me, my ego more than anything. Um, yeah. So I'm so glad that you speak up like it's nothing,
Well,
you
I
know.
like that you said put that aside because unfortunately, it's not only bladder incontinence. I also have bowel incontinence. If we're really going to become friends here and really
Dude, no, we're
share.
friends. We're family. Listen, I just told Nick the other day, isn't it funny how we're all okay with talking about peeing ourselves now, but we're still not okay with the other way? We're so okay with
No, I
like,
can talk about it. I'll talk about it. This
you're
is the
awesome, dude.
reality. This
You're
is
good.
who we are, unfortunately. But people need to recognize that. And also, we know that the disease manifests differently in each person, right? So each person's experience and symptoms, they're all unique. So I think it's really important that we connect on different levels. It's the same disease, different attitudes, different progressions, but
Have you ever been triggered? Has anyone compared you to somebody else where you did not like that? Because everyone with MS is different. I've had it done here in my building. There's someone, I've mentioned this before, where I hate to say it, but he's at his worst. He's at his worst right now and bedridden and all that stuff. And people always try to compare me to him, like, oh, he was like you a few years ago. And it really bothers me when people say that, you know. And I respect him, you know, like everyone has their own path, but stop comparing everyone.
yeah. Well, it just shows their level of understanding. But I always have to remind myself when I'm having conversations with people that don't sit well with me that they can only meet you at the level that they've met themselves. So you have to recognize how much they've grown, how much they really understand the human condition, their emotional intelligence. I have been compared, maybe not on a more negative note, but a positive in the sense that I'm often compared to people who are more able bodied than I am. And it's like, oh, like, that kind of story. Oh, I know somebody with MS. She's doing fine. Or she just ran a marathon. And that's fantastic. I'm
Mhm.
happy for them. But I'm just saying that might not be my story. That is not my story. I tell my husband every day if aliens land tomorrow and start shooting, save yourself because I cannot run anymore. I considered myself an athlete. I'm the first girl in my family for over like 3 generations. I have brothers, 4 uncles, grandfather, grandfather, grandfather. So when I came along, they were like, they must have treated you like such a princess. Like, no, they didn't know what to do with me. They raised me like a boy. So like I've always have sports in my DNA. And so for me to lose that athleticism and that mobility has been, a shocking, life-changing moment.
Sure.
Obviously, it's allowed me to understand how I can contribute, what my value is, who I am beyond those expectations. And speaking to the carnation pinning, some of my MP meetings that probably touched me the most were people who were like once Olympic athletes. We have an MP who was a flag bearer for Canada, 2 Olympics in a row. And I had to be honest with him. And I said, you know what? It's actually really painful for me to be sitting in your office. I think what you've accomplished on behalf of Canada and your amazing career in athleticism is just such an inspiration. But to be sitting here today, knowing that I cannot run anymore, and I used to play sports, I don't even need to win. I just want to be on the field. Like, that I
Yeah.
was like, it's just tough, right? So, yeah. So I'm often compared to people who are maybe doing a little better than I am. And I want to celebrate them, but I feel like you have to prove yourself all the time.
It's you say if there's an alien invasion, save yourself. I always say zombies. If zombies are coming after us, I'm the first one to be taken. So that's funny.
Or maybe we should just get to a boat together, like in the middle of the water. I always feel like that's the safest place in a zombie apocalypse. That's my plan.
Done.
But yeah, I totally connect with what you're saying about being compared to other people, comparing yourself to who you used to be. Every now and again when when I have people reach out from that I used to work with, and they tell me, you know, stories about being on the job and like cases they've handled and stuff like that, and I'm like, I would give a whole lot of things to be able to do half that anymore. So, you know, consider yourself lucky that you have to gripe about the things you do at work. Because, you know, I could show you some things and it would change your mind.
Oh, yeah.
And I think we have a tendency to be hardest on ourselves when it comes to comparison, especially comparing previous life me versus, you know, this life me. And it's not fair.
I know. Well, I always, to your point about saying, oh, you're griping about work, I always remind people to be grateful that you're sitting in rush hour traffic because you can drive and you are gainfully employed.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I know it's all perspective. I'm not trying to say that my story is worse than any others. I know there's other stories out there that are much more challenging, but I think it's just important for us to really understand how we're engaging in life and to anticipate what our needs are and
Mm-hmm.
how we can help, right? So,
And to prioritize those needs. Because for me personally, looking at how I prioritize my life now versus before the diagnosis is not even the same thought process.
yeah.
Just because, and it's not even like, can I make it there under my own power? I mean, it's just what's important now is not what was important then. So,
Priorities for sure.
mm-hmm.
So is there any other prominent people that you would like to meet?
Um,
Yeah, like who
I'm
would,
just happy
I
to
I will
connect with
tag
people.
them.
It's hard for me to like put them on a like list. I've been very lucky though to meet some really inspiring people. I've met Ardra Shepherd, who I know has been on your show.
yep.
I
Awesome.
actually worked on her fashion disc project. I don't know if you talked to her about that. I was
That
on her season
I
1, so I was responsible for the casting on that show. So
did
I was
That
I
part
show
of
is
that.
huge.
Dude, I had no idea. This is
That
so
show has
cool.
come up like this is the third time, I think.
So cool.
Well, because I did have initially a career in, you know, fashion and retail, and then I had to pivot because obviously I can't wear heels and be on the floor all day. So I started looking into social media, and obviously I followed a lot of accounts. I started doing some social media for a boutique I was looking after at one time, and then I saw that Ardra was looking to bring somebody on board in the from the MS community, and I thought this is perfect for me. Like this is what I'm, you know, where my career was prior to
Yeah.
my diagnosis, but it can continue in a different way. So I did her social media and I did some of the casting. So again, I got to meet some amazing people through that. And yeah, no, it's been amazing. I mean, I'm just happy to connect with people. Like I wouldn't say that there's somebody that I want to meet,
Yeah.
but I've been very lucky that within the past 3 years of my diagnosis, I feel like I've achieved a lot and I've been very like active in the community in terms of support and again being addicted to hope and continuing wherever life takes me in the future. This could change. You might talk to me in a few weeks and I'll say I'm not sure I feel that way anymore, and that's, you know, the ebbs and flows, but I hope I can maintain that. I've kind of changed a little bit. I said that I'm addicted to hope, but I also think it's something about, I don't know what the correct word I want to use, but it's just about being able to maintain like a confidence about life. Maybe a hope for hope's sake isn't enough. It has to look a little bit different. So,
Sure. And it boggles my mind how simultaneously big and tight this community of MSers is, because
yeah.
like I said, you're like the third person to bring up that specific show who's been involved with it and other shows. And I feel humble because like we're just two nobodies with a podcast, and here we are talking to all these amazing people doing all these amazing things such as yourself. So I feel really blessed to engage with everybody just like you do. Um, even for the selfish idea that it makes me feel less alone.
Hey Nick,
You
do you
know,
know where I met Karen? I met her at the event with Jonathan in Toronto.
Yes. Another amazing MS
Wow.
warrior.
Oh, by the way, Jonathan tells me to say hi to you.
Oh,
Karen.
thank you.
Yes.
Tell him I say hi back. I hope he's keeping well. I hope he's didn't incur any kind of relapse, or I hope he's proud of everything he's accomplished. It's okay. You don't have to speak on his behalf, but
Thank you.
I know he's amazing. So absolutely. Talk about being addicted to hope. He is the embodiment of that, embodiment of resilience for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure. I had a question that I wrote, which is funny because I said, "What is your hope with Take Action
Ah,
for MS that you're involved in?" But you became a Canadian, the ambassador for. You've become an ambassador for. So am I, by the way. I'm sure you know that. When did you? Why did you? How did you? Can I ask that?
of course. Well, it's funny because you mentioned Jonathan, and that's where we first met, and officially in person. And I had seen you on some of the ambassador calls previously, and I know of you and about you. And I remember I was speaking to Jonathan, and I said to him, okay, can we get a photo together? I'd love to post something about this. And then I kind of hear Jonathan just kind of turn and wave and say, oh, hi, Terry. And I turn around and it's you. And I'm like, oh, I'm like girl fanning right now. I was like so excited. I'm like, Terry's here.
Stop.
I'm like, this is awesome. Like I was so like
I
over
can't
the
even
moon.
get
I
my
was expecting it.
intro. My intro is
Oh,
so flop today. Anyway,
uh,
thank you. You're awesome. Stop it.
no. Well, no, you're awesome. You're both awesome. Come on. But no, absolutely. But yeah, you asked me about hope, or my hope
Yes.
for the future,
Take
or
action for MS.
oh, take action from how I
Yes.
became an MS ambassador. No, sorry. Look, this is our MS moments
Yeah,
where
I
we're
know.
just all over the place.
The way it goes.
I know. And it's good. We support each other, we understand. So that's what this is all about.
Thank you.
I became the MS ambassador executive for Ontario. Uh, I think a couple of years after my initial diagnosis, just
Okay.
because of how involved I've been in the community, in fundraising and advocacy. And then I spoke to the executive. I had some phone calls about what my level of participation would look like. And I kind of felt like it'd be nice to kind of pay it forward, inspire other people. Specifically, there's different chat rooms now. We Talk MS, newly diagnosed. I just feel like there's a lot that I can offer. So, like I said, my brand is kindness. I think it's really important just to be kind,
Of
especially
course.
in today's
Of course.
news and everything that's happening in the world. But also, I just want to make a meaningful difference. And so that's kind of what keeps me involved and inspired. And so that's how I became an MS ambassador for Ontario.
Really similar
Oh,
story.
yeah.
You're in a good place, like mentally. I'm sure this is why you're paying it forward to
Mm,
people who might be struggling, and I'm the same way. I'm in a good place mentally, yeah, for the
yeah.
most part. So
Yeah.
I'm passing
We
it
have our
forward.
moments,
Yeah, of
and
course.
we're entitled to those moments. But I always say, because of the unpredictability of the disease, I just want to do as much as I can in the ways that I can for as long as I can, because I know that could change or it
Hmm.
might look different. So while I'm in this moment that I can offer something, I'm going to put that energy into that because I feel like it can bring about a more positive outcome for so many people, whether it's people living with MS, their support, their community, caregivers, there's
Hmm.
anyone who's affected.
Yeah, I find it selfishly gratifying. And you don't want to say that you're being selfish when you're doing any of this stuff, but I'll admit that I find it makes me feel good when I can connect with someone who's newly diagnosed and tell them it's going to be okay. You're going to live a very long time. It might not always be what you pictured, but just take a breath and here's all the resources, here's all the people, and just so that it in any way that it can make it just a little bit less, end of the world.
I, I
That's
told
how that's what I try to do.
I told you when you get diagnosed, your doctor should be like, all right, so here's a counselor, here's a second counselor,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, here's a third therapist,
Mm-hmm.
here's a support group, here's a book about what, like it'd be nice if someone gave us direction as soon as you get diagnosed. I don't feel like that there's enough of that. That's the
Yeah.
truth. That's for me. But have you ever gone to a support group?
Well, I was just about to say, isn't that how you both met? Through peer support or?
Yeah, through Instagram and then Terry reaching out.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I hate saying that. I facilitate, I open up a group for everybody. I open the room and close the room. How about that? And I do. And a lot of people say, wow, thank you so much. I needed that. Dude, I need that. It helps me a lot more than it helps everybody else. Believe me.
Mhm.
I feel
Mhm.
like we're in a community of just support. It's so great. And there's so many groups out there I'm sure you know about. There's the women's group, there's the newly diagnosed group, there's a group for Iranians, there's a group for, you know what I mean? So many different regions, and it's so great. Have you ever been to a support group?
I haven't been to a specific support group, but I feel like I've cultivated my own support group in my own ways. But I have a question for you. Since you do facilitate these support groups, do you find it like a common theme or like
Hmm.
participant? Like, do you see connections between people diagnosed with MS? Because I personally feel I've noticed. I mean, again, I I don't mean to speak out of turn or anything, but I find most people that I meet, including yourselves, who are diagnosed with MS are just some of the most generous and giving people I've ever met, and often putting themselves behind other people's needs. Like
Hmm.
I mean, that's just been my experience. The people I talk to, they're people who are facilitating support groups or they're therapists or they work for Autism Canada. You know, I don't I just find it interesting that I've noted that everybody I've met, for some reason, there's been some common denominator for me, but I don't know if you've had that experience.
Generally, I feel like everybody wants to know that they're not alone.
Hmm.
So in the beginning, you really try to keep it in a positive atmosphere, a positive ambiance with everybody. But then it generally goes to somebody venting and getting it off their chest. And as soon as that happens, you see everybody else nodding, and it's a trickle effect, domino effect, where somebody else will
Yeah,
say, me too. I can't believe I'm so glad you said that," and that's how it happens. And that's why I always start it with a vulnerable issue in my life. I don't care. I try to have no ego anymore, and that opens it up. You know,
absolutely.
so
I participated in the Walk of Champions this past year in Las Vegas because
mm,
it's for like top fundraisers, and it was from all across Canada, and we kind of had like a dinner one night, and we were supposed to get up, introduce ourselves, and kind of have an icebreaker. And the MS Canada representatives were looking around the room as to who was going to start. And I kind of made a face because I was like, I wasn't prepared for this. And they said, "Oh, Karen's making a face." And I'm like, "Oh gosh." I'm like, "Good. You've noticed I made a face. So you're not going to pick on me." And she's like, "Well, I guess we should just get her over with first."
Thanks.
Fine. So I get up and I offer my vulnerable story, like you just shared, because nobody
yeah.
really told me what I should speak to. I just kind of said, "I'm Karen Jacoby. I'm from Toronto, Ontario. I was diagnosed. This is how I'm feeling. This is why I'm happy to be here." And then I sat back down. And then after that, to your point, domino effect. By the end of all the introductions, there was tears all over the room. There was a lot of like moments where people were getting up and hugging each other, and it just takes one person to offer their vulnerability to allow people to feel comfortable to share their story or their truth. So I mean, we're very lucky to have people like you who are prepared to be
Um,
a face of the community and a voice, because I think it's important for all of us to feel comfortable with sharing.
I, I don't even know what to say to that. When I met you, nobody can tell unless oh my God, we are family. You and I, we're a family. I feel like we're family. I'm very comfortable with you.
Mhm.
I The fact that you have MS, I know that you understand what I go through. We might not have the same exact symptoms, but I just know I have anxiety from this MS as well. I think my anxiety might be worse than my MS. People look at my MS and say, "Oh, you're in a wheelchair. I'm sorry." My anxiety is debilitating. Like sometimes it keeps me at home, and when moments like this happen earlier, my anxiety flares up. But anyway, so I really appreciate you being here today. I know you're really busy, and you have a lot of things on you're going to be humble now. No, no, I'm okay. But I really do appreciate you taking the time to come on here.
Of course, I wouldn't miss it.
Appreciate it.
And to your point about mental health, I think it's part of the invisible disease, right? So
Mhm.
I just came back from my trip from London, England, and the UK, and I was surprised at like how open they were about recognizing invisible illnesses. I'm not sure if you've ever been there, but on their tube, like their subway system, they actually, in their um, disability or priority seating, they actually have the seats printed with not all diseases are visible.
Uh,
Oh,
And then it
nice.
actually has
Wow.
a sign that says if you have trouble
wow.
standing, like, it's not just, oh, you have to be, it has to be obvious. They also have something called like these sunflower lanyards. So anybody who has an invisible disease or illness can wear them. And then
Hmm.
people recognize
Hmm.
immediately that they might have other needs. And it could be like mental health or
Mhm.
processing, it could be MS. And they're also like very open. Like I was lining up for certain things, but I would forget my walker, so I couldn't stand very long. And I get out of the line and say, "Oh, I'm gonna have to go sit on the bench," and somebody would come up to me immediately and say, "You don't need to leave the line." And I said, "No, I live with MS. My husband will stay in line." They're like, "Oh, no, no, you can just go and skip the line priority." I'm
Wow.
like, "Really?"
That
So
would
then I
not happen
went.
around here.
I know. And then all I had to do was show them like a little piece of paper or some kind of like I have the disability credit that said I have MS, and they said no problem, and I just went straight ahead, and I was like,
Wow.
unbelievable. I think we can learn a few things from their programs there.
How long were you there for?
I was there for a week.
Oh, okay, a week. And was that
Yeah.
the first time you went to the UK?
No, it was my third time.
Oh, cool.
So again, you can compare it to able-bodied years versus post-diagnosis. As traveling's looked very different, but it's important to pace yourself. And I don't know how you feel. I know I'm a woman, so maybe we have different needs, but for me, having to wash my hair or go in the shower, like my whole day's over. Like I am
Oh my
so
God.
exhausted and it's so much work. But you want to look nice when you're on your trip, so you have to figure out dry shampoos or I don't know. It's funny. It's funny how life looks now because there was a time I get up every morning, wash my hair, full face of makeup, designer clothes, and now I'm lucky if I can roll out of bed by like 11 with oily hair and sweatpants. And I'm lucky that my husband does not complain.
This is real talk. I love it when we
It
talk
is.
about this stuff. Yeah.
Well,
Like,
it's
do I
true.
have to tell you? Oh my God, that I don't shower every day, and I'm a
No,
clean
me
freak.
neither. Me
Okay, okay,
too.
okay, okay,
But
okay.
I know. You know.
Trust me, I know it's really hard,
Yeah.
and this is why I'm open about it because I know people have egos, and it's like just drop that shit already,
Yeah, and the ego is who are you keeping your house clean for every day? Who comes
dude.
over on a daily basis when people, you know what I mean? Like, can you skip a day and it will be fine?
For me, my place was always organized, and people would
Mm-hmm.
come in and they'd be scared to invite me to their own home because they thought, oh, you have OCD. No, I'm tired, and once my place is clean, I just want to keep it clean, and I don't have the energy to put stuff back, and you know,
Well,
that's
I
my
think
thing.
Yeah, and I think sometimes we have challenges because we want to control our controllables, right? Like our disease is so out of control that if we can control keeping our house clean or washing
Mhm.
my hair, that's a win, but it also comes with a lot of energy and expectations and I think
Yeah.
that's part of the challenges of trying to find that balance because sometimes doing those things helps our mental health, but it unfortunately is not good for our physical health. So you have to pick and choose, right?
But you,
Yeah.
you're you're right. I tried to show everyone that everything's okay. By my
Mm-hmm.
place being perfect, oh, everything's okay. I got a control on everything. You're right. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I don't.
No.
No, we were just talking about that. Terry and I were just going through it. We were both kind of going through it last week for our last show, and we were just talking about how life started to pile up on us that particular last week, and it was just like, well, what can we do to get out of that? And I guess we both just started by cleaning our space again.
I was definitely in a funk for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Lasted a few days. A little bit in it. I made
Well,
counselor appointments, so I'm gonna go see one next week again. I'm gonna start that whole. Go ahead. Sorry.
okay. No, I was gonna say what brought you out of your funk? You said
Uh,
it lasted a few weeks, so or
it,
sorry,
it
a few days.
no, it's okay. It's okay. To be honest with you, I called my counselor,
Okay,
and
good.
I've done this before. Like I'm a big believer if you got to talk to someone. It doesn't have to be on a regular basis, but at least once you should be in a program once a year, like a 6-week program, or what you need. So I called and I started again, and we made an appointment, and I felt good that day after I talked to her, saying, this is what I'm going through. This is what I need help with. I'm acknowledging it. I've become a better guy again. I was on a good path of happiness and understanding and giving myself empathy, like not, giving myself a break, not getting upset at myself. And I felt like
Yeah.
I was falling off that path. So I was getting bitter again. I was inside my head, of course, I was biting people's head offs. I would criticize people, and I didn't like, that's not me. I'm a happy
Yeah.
guy. People see me, I always smile. And yeah, so I that's what happened. And as soon as I made an appointment and talked to my counselor who I talked to in the past, I felt better. I'm like, all right, okay,
Good.
I'm doing something for myself, and I really got out of it.
Yeah.
And then I started apologizing to everyone. I'm
Oh
sorry
no.
if I was you know,
Mm,
to my
no.
partner too, you know how it is.
Yeah. But I
And
get it too. It's like we kind of feel like we have to have the brave face, we have to smile, we have to have the clean house, or else people aren't going to like us. People are
Mm,
going to be uncomfortable. People aren't going to want to be around us, So we always feel like we have to prove something instead of just saying, I'm a good person. And that's
Mhm.
enough.
Yeah.
That's enough. Right. But I get it with the ego. For me, when I was diagnosed, I had to swallow my fiercely independent pride and ask for help. That's not easy. Sure.
Yeah.
Not really.
and people
Mine,
love to help. Sorry,
oh,
go
they
ahead.
do. They do love to help, and that's fine. And it's good because you want to, that's when you see who's genuinely there for you and who's there for the you that they've seen. And I know that's really deep, but once they know you, once the curtain's pulled back and they see the you that now needs the mobility aid or can't walk the distance they used to, or pick whatever, then you'll know who's really there because you connected for real and who was just going along. But to get out of the simultaneous funk with Terry, I get quite the rush of good endorphins just doing this show. This is, again, it's selfish, but I think but it helps. This show helps me. So it's like free therapy for me. So we get on here and Terry and I bare our souls, and people connect with it, and we get emails saying, "Oh my God, I can't believe I thought I was the only one." And to me, that's like great. We're trying to make make the listeners' uncomfortableness with their own situation normal, because they can go, oh yeah, okay, that's not, again, I thought I was the only one who had to worry about adult diapers, or not seeing out of your eye, or whatever, or being scared about the money, or whatever.
The,
But to
the,
hear us talk about it, hopefully it helps.
I feel like the way
Absolutely
you
did.
said adult diapers wasn't clear. I think you said adult diapers. I think you were uncomfortable saying that. Am I wrong?
I don't need them. I have them. I have them for long trips.
That's a good thing that
But
you can
that's,
admit that you
yeah.
have them.
Mhm.
You said I don't need them, and in my head I'm like, come
Well,
on. And
I
then you
don't
went,
need
I
them
have them.
on the
Good,
daily.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, 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 yeah.
I'm at the point where it's just a very specific use for them. That's all.
Awesome.
But
There's this.
Well, if you need any suggestions, you have two people here that can
I don't.
let
I
you
don't
know.
got issues.
oh
Just
no,
joking.
Terry's fine. He's totally fine. He's faking the whole time.
I found out about a new thing, and this is really uncomfortable for me to talk about. But you know how there's adult diapers? There's this new thing. It's not new, just no one knows about it or no one talks about it for males. It's a condom catheter. Have you heard of that? Obviously, why would you? Have you heard of it, Nick? Curious.
I think you brought it up
Y-
once a while ago.
I want to get used to this, man, because it's just so weird to talk about it. Again, my ego. But if that's something that would change people's lives if they got comfortable using that, I don't mind on a long distance being protected by wearing, the diapers. I'm gonna just say it like it's normal. I don't mind, but when if you do have to, if you don't make it to the washroom and you do wet your diaper, it's just not a comfortable feeling. You want to change and then you want to shower later and you want to make sure you're clean. I just think this, I'm sorry. For males, it's obviously easier to have a condom catheter, but I think it might change my life. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. This is
No,
therapy
good,
for me right now. Thank you.
good. Well, it's true. There is an element of ego. Absolutely. And I had to experience that at my own wedding last year because I've recognized that I have emotional responses to things that then flare me up, specifically my bladder control. So, of course, it's going to be a very exciting day, emotional day, tiring day. And all I wanted to do was not wear a diaper, but
Mm,
I wore a diaper under my wedding dress. And does that make you feel beautiful and lovely?
mm.
No. But am I happy I did it? Yes. Because if there was an accident, that would have been mortifying. And that would be how I remember my wedding. So, yeah, talk about checking your ego. Uh, that's not fun.
Thank you so much for bringing this up. If you ever peed yourself in public, I'd pee myself right beside you. I promise you.
Oh, thank you. Well, I actually spoke to somebody once, and they told me that they also had incontinence issues. And the first day that she met her now husband and father of her child, who also lives with MS, she went to his house and literally had an accident on his porch in front of him just because she had no control. And she looked at him, she winked, and she said, "I'm just marking my territory."
Oh my God.
I was like, I love that.
You gotta
I'm going
have,
to use that again. And I'm like, I'm glad it worked out that you did get married and everything. You knew
Yeah.
then it was a sign. It was the
Yeah.
universe conspiring.
that's awesome.
Yeah, you got to have a sense of humor about it, and same with the addicted to hope. I had people asking me, members of parliament, minister of health, saying, how can you be addicted to hope? You're telling me this story, you're sharing all of your challenges. And I said, well, what's the alternative? Right? Like, there is one, but I'd rather live in this space than
Yeah.
of some humor, of some hope, than obviously I can allow myself some of the darker moments. It's important, it's cathartic, but in terms of my day to day, I think it's important to keep that mantra and that kind of attitude in order to continue to manage, right? So
You were diagnosed 2020. How many years before that were your symptoms affecting you?
I think every day I'm reminded of something and I think, oh gosh, that was probably a mess. I wouldn't be
Oh,
surprised if it
okay.
was like even a decade ahead of time.
That was me too. We had to go back to my pediatric records, and I was complaining about stuff forever. So,
Well, I have heard you share on some of these shows how, and I applaud you for being such an advocate of your health, in terms of when you recognize you have a new symptom and you go to somebody to search answers. That was something that I did not do that I feel I really faulted myself. That could have allowed me not to have to wear diapers now.
mm,
In terms of attacks, like at least you went out and you sought answers and you acknowledge and speak to people, or maybe I'm getting that wrong, maybe you want to clarify, but
no, you're right, and I appreciate you being a listener as well. In my teenage years, it started around 14, 15 years old. I started noticing some things that were painful or discomfort, and I would bring them to my doctor's attention, and they would kind of get, pushed aside because um, if you have a symptom that comes and goes as a 14-year-old, it's not uncommon. Your
Growing
hormone,
pains.
your growing pains, your hormonal, all these things are happening. So it's not uncommon for a 14-year-old to complain about their leg going numb or their vision's weird. And then it resolves itself. And then you
I,
go, then, they go, oh, okay, that passed. And then just life goes on. So that's why I say you got to self-advocate. If you know it's not right, it's not right.
I think you said earlier you just don't want to come across dramatic.
Yeah,
That
right.
was my thing too.
Yeah,
So
you don't want to
sorry.
be crying wolf all the time.
Mhm.
well, to be honest, because of the stories you shared, that's why I chose the word dramatic, because that's what you said once, Terry.
Uh,
You said,
Yes,
I don't want to be dramatic. And I'm like, I'm going to show that I'm connecting with you because that's exactly how I
that's
felt
my
too.
word.
and that's the thing. It's we're so conditioned to like just deal with stuff that we don't want to be the person who says, oh, this hurts. Oh, by the way, this hurts. Oh, this doesn't feel right. Oh, this doesn't. And it's like, so
Yeah,
you just don't say anything.
yeah.
So I don't
There's
know. Both are harmful.
there's a bunch of symptoms that you probably never mentioned when someone says, "So what are your symptoms?" You're like, "Oh, well, I got tingly, my bladder, this, that." but then you probably forget the one or two. You're like, oh yeah, I
Mhm.
do have pain in my foot. Like I have pain in my foot I forgot about because it's just always there. It's not unbearable, first of all, but still, I never mention it. And then I feel like, oh, I can't mention that now. I'm going to be dramatic.
Mm-hmm.
Or not even recognizing that might be something detrimental. Because I remember when I was younger and playing sports and running track and tennis and things, I'd sometimes come home and I'd be spasming. I'd start uncontrollably like moving my legs around. But I just thought, oh, okay, it's just because I've went through a workout and this isn't a
Yep.
huge problem, right? And it's going to remedy itself, relapsing. So again, I think it's important to acknowledge when something's changed, whether it's good or bad. There's no harm in sharing. Again, this podcast, the reason why we're all here is because it's important for us to share. It's important for us to connect and allow other people to offer their vulnerable stories as well in order for them to be hopefully in more positive health outcomes.
Exactly right. Because Terry and I don't have the exclusive rights to all of the stories. So we don't know who we're going to talk to, who's going to give us a story that somebody else will connect with that we wouldn't offer. So that's why we like
Mhm.
talking to everybody.
Mhm. Yeah, it's the snowflake disease, right? Not one exactly identical to the other. So,
Mm-hmm.
So
have you ever met anybody that you felt was close to being identical to you, though?
Terry's pretty close.
I've had people, well, I've never had, well, I have had it maybe for a very short time, the optic neuritis.
Yeah.
So, I feel bad for those who got it for their first symptom. Damn, that must be scary.
Mm-hmm.
Mine was my whole body, left side being numb. So, the whole stroke, is it a stroke? Is it, how everyone,
Mhm.
I
but
Go ahead,
I,
Terry.
I've had people that have similar symptoms, like that. I've had a bad case of vertigo once. And
Mm-hmm.
to the point where if I tilt my head to the side, it goes away. So as long as my head stays to the side, and no one's ever had that except for one person, I'm like, no way. And no way.
Two.
I
Cool.
live with vertigo
Yeah.
24/7.
I connect with I seem to connect with people who maybe not have exactly the same symptoms, but the same kind of life story where they were clicking along, doing just great, and then the bottom fell out. Like there was no subtlety about it. It was like just one day they were good, and the next day it was gone. It was just tanked. So the more people I talk to like that, the more I can connect with them, especially if they happen to work in public service.
Karen, we are going to tag you, your Instagram and stuff, but do you want to tell everyone where they can find you? I know you're on Instagram.
I
Your
am
name,
on Instagram.
I,
Uh, it is Karen versus MS. So that's KAREN VS MS.
okay, awesome. And that's Instagram, right?
That is my Instagram account, yes.
Cool.
And I think I might have a Twitter. I don't know. I'm all over the place. You can just search me. I have a few different handles. I have Karen versus MS. I have Karen versus Karen. I have Karen versus the world for different reasons, so. But yes,
Awesome.
anyway,
What's coming up with MS Canada that people can get involved with?
well, there's always amazing things to get involved with MS Canada. I must say that they've been a huge support to me and allowed me a new sense of confidence and purpose with my partnership with them. I mean, every year, I hope next year you can talk about there's always burgers to be in MS with A&W. I don't know if you've mentioned that.
We
No?
have not. No.
Okay. Well,
I'm
there's
glad
a
you're mentioning it
segue.
though. Please. Yeah. Yes. Yes.
So in
Definitely.
August, there's one specific day in Canada. And A&W is a Canadian-owned company, fast food service. If you purchase a teen burger, a donation is made to MS Canada. And you can also round up your bill for the entire month. So we always like to plug that. Obviously, there's different chat rooms. We talk MS. There's different advocacy opportunities. You can sign, I know Terry did it recently. You can sign a letter about the effects of the COVID pandemic for our MS community. So we're just looking at investment and research because a cure would be wonderful for everybody, loss of productivity, costs, all those pieces. Um, yeah, I mean, if you want to get in touch with me, you can DM me on Karen versus MS. I also have an email account, Kjacoby@live.com if you want to have a conversation about any of the ways that you can get involved. But otherwise, I'm just happy that you're listening to this today and that you're continuing your journey with however you may be affected with MS. And we hope that this made a difference in your lives and is helping.
Very well said.
Awesome. Karen, thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you.
And thanks for bearing with my brain fog in the beginning. And yeah, we will talk soon. Nick, I'll talk to you later.
All right. Talk soon, brother.
All right, man. Take care. So check us out at 40belowzero.com. That's 4T-below-0.com. Or feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. Our email address is info@40belowzero.com. Our personal Instagram account are, for Nix, it's Nix_V713. Or for Terry, it's what's_MS. Awesome. Looking forward to hearing from you guys. We'll talk soon.